Welcome, everybody. Let's see here. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Harris,
Here.
Vice Mayor Boomgarden,
Here.
Councilmember Cardoza,
Here.
Councilmember Espandola,
Here.
and Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
All right, if everyone can please stand for invocation, followed by, or actually the invocations by Pastor Jim Anderson of Evangelical Free Church. Thank you very much, sir, for coming today. And if I may ask our new fire chief, Chief Alexander, to conduct the pledge when we're done with the invocation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please receive the invocation. Almighty God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for communicating with us through receptive and perceptive men and women. We receive from the prophet Micah, he has told you, O mortal, what is good. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? For the noble work of our council members and the staff of our city, we earnestly ask that you would give wisdom to establish justice and fairness for our citizens, strength to show kindness to all, especially the vulnerable, humility to acknowledge there is an authority over us all. We each approach you through our own faith. I come to you today in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you both. And Chief, my apologies. I didn't hit you up ahead of time. You were kind of swamped by people, so that kind of caught you by surprise. At this point in the agenda, it's time for modifications and approval. I'm going to move item number 18. I've got, I think, literally 18 speaker cards here. It has to do with the vaping ordinance. I'm going to move that to number at between 3 and 4. Just for time's sake, if so many people want to speak, I'd like to have them say their piece and be able to do their thing, just out of courtesy. Okay? So we're going to move on to number 1, the swearing in of new Fire Chief Alexander. After, thank you. My Vice Mayor's got my back here. Mr. City Attorney, do we have anything to report from closed session?
Thank you. Only item A was considered in closed session. There's no reportable action from item A. Items B, C, and D will be continued to the end of the meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And come on up for me.
I state your name. I, Jesse Alexander, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations, Chief. Thank you very much. Everything at all? Good?
We got a mic for you, Jesse. We got a mic for you, sir.
Thank you very much. I had not prepared a speech. I was not quite ready for that, but I wanted to tell everybody, thank you very much for coming out here. This is a great privilege to lead such a fine organization and an honor to be part of the Yuba City Fire Department and community. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, now we're going on to number 2, recognition for the Polar Bear Plunge presentation of a check to the Seroptos International, Marysville, and Yuba City. For any of those members, if you'd please come forward and receive your check, and Vice Mayor Cardoza, the polar bear plunge expert, has a presentation for you. I'm sorry, slipped.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Did I not get that?
Okay. Council, if you'd like to join me, come on up. Like to join me? I'm gonna squeeze in the middle, girls. Ladies, excuse me. Yeah, again. So, I'll wait for the mayor here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For you, sir. Sandy, sneak on one side here, please. There you go. Okay. Are we all in? Okay. So a few months back, we had the polar bear plunge with the city of Yuba City since 1997. So a few months back, I decided let's make it a fundraiser and let's give it to a good cause. So I picked the Sropmus Marysville Yuba City. Make sure I get it right. And we have these a group of ladies here in front of me that jumped in the pool. They all screamed like girls. But we had a great time, and I promised them $5,000. And well, before I do that, there's some people I want to thank. We have 26 sponsors. I want to thank all of them for helping this, making a donation, and giving this great cause. And I want to thank my little munchkin here helper, Sandy, because she was my right-hand person, and then coordinator. Yes, there you go. And I'd also like to thank Ann Jillian, our recreation supervisor at the Gap. She also helped me a great deal to make sure that this was a great success. So on behalf of the city of Yuba City, it's not $5,000. I would like to present a check to Sropmus of Marysville, Yuba City, a check for $7,000. And I hope you do a good cause.
On behalf of, can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jackie. On behalf of Sropmus, we thank you for helping us with this. This money will go to two of our great programs that we have, and we're very excited, and thanks for all your help. And we wanted to present you with a little gift as well.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you.
I think you have the prettiest legs there.
Thank you.
That's what Sean said.
Right, yes. Thank you all, and thank you, Sropmus. Thank you. Yes. There you go. Go ahead and take it. You bet. That's for you. Thank you. You bet. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you.
Crystal. Here you go. Sweet. My wall of fame, Sandy.
These things here. All right, Jessica. Presentation for Sutter County Museum. Welcome, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me. Terrell's just given me a quick little pointer on how to use the pointer. So, okay. So I just hit forward and it goes. Brilliant. Much fancier technology than we have at the museum. Thank you for having me. It's been, I think, about 2 years since I was here to give a presentation to City Council. So I'm going to give just a little bit of brief history of the museum and some information that I know will be familiar to you guys. But for those people who are not as familiar with the museum, it's important to give that little bit as well. So our name until last May, as the slide in front of you does say, was the Community Memorial Museum of Sutter County. Whew. It's a mouthful. So we did some rebranding last May, and we are now the Sutter County Museum, which is much easier to remember. So, a brief history. On your left, you have Norma and Howard Harder with the very first museum director in front of the museum building right before it opened in 1975. Norma and Howard were the force behind the museum being created. They had a vision to build something for our community to memorialize the history of the early settlers and pioneers in the area. They also wanted to make sure that it would be a very long-lasting community institution. They didn't want this to be something that would last a few years and people would be excited about and then it would go away. So they did some very smart things to ensure that that would indeed be the case, particularly organizing us as a department of Sutter County, and we'll get to the details of that in a little bit. But so the museum opened in 1975. It has been expanded multiple times over the years. So what you see on your right is our facade prior to the renovations that we did last year. Renovations. So we did everything that is on that screen in front of you in 6 months, plus a lot of little detail things that didn't fit on there in a readable font. So, but really shortly, we put a new sign out front that enables people to find us and to know that we are a museum, a lot more so than they did before. We refreshed our facade. We put a historic image of the Sutter Buttes on our front windows. We reorganized the gift shop so it's much easier to shop. We got a new front counter, new flooring and baseboards throughout the building, which means we packed and moved everything in that building. Some of them moved 2 or 3 times. Painting in a number of the interior rooms, cleared clutter out of exhibit spaces. We reorganized our office area. Thanks in part to a grant from the state of California, we put high-density mobile shelving in our artifact storage areas. So that really means that we are now much better able to take care of the artifacts in our collection, which of course are the core of what a museum is and does. We also replaced our old temporary wall system in our temporary exhibits gallery, which is that big front room you come into first. And we put a new HVAC system out in our storage building, which means it's much better for our artifacts now as well. So that is what the front of the museum looks like now. So you can see we have our new logo with our new name on the front doors and that historic image of the Buttes across the front windows. We are hoping to get the exterior painted in the next year or 2 as well, which will make a really big improvement too. Here's what you look at when you come right inside. So that top left image is our new front counter. It's much smaller, but it also orients our volunteers much better for visitors. When you come in the front door, you see a friendly face now instead of someone 20 feet away at the old front desk. And then the other 2 pictures show you different parts of our gift shop and how we reorganized it so it's much easier to shop. Some of our exhibits look pretty much the same. Some things we didn't move around a lot. You guys will recognize from our agricultural wing, the one on the left is the blacksmith shop, which looks exactly the same as it did before. The one on the right is our dry yard display, and that one actually is completely redone from how it looked before. That is the high-density shelving that we were able to put in our collection storage area. So easy to use. You can actually stand all the way down at that end and roll the end one and they all will move. They're so lightweight and it's so much better for our collection. We had 2 grand reopening parties. We had a VIP grand reopening party on Friday, June 14th. About 250 people came to that, which was awesome, and it was a really fun night. And then the next day we had our big public opening, June 15th. About 650 people came to that, which was great. We had food trucks, we had live music, we had kids' activities inside and out. We had a brand new temporary exhibit and just a shiny, brand new looking building to show off. So it was really a really great day. Familiar face there right in the front of the picture with me. So most of the folks there in that picture are board members of the museum as well. So as I mentioned, we are a department of Sutter County. Sutter County pays for 2 full-time employees' salaries and benefits. They pay for utilities, they pay for building maintenance and basic business expenses. Think phone bill, paper, that sort of thing. Pretty much everything that makes us a museum, our nonprofit pays for. The Museum Association has been with us since day one, so we have always been organized as a partnership between Sutter County and the Museum Association, our 501c3. So they pay for all of the temporary exhibits we bring in. They pay for any upgrades or replacements of our permanent exhibits. They support our education programs. The gift shop exists because of their support, all of our marketing efforts. The artisan community garden, which we added to our property almost 2 years ago, is supported by them as well. So it really, truly is a partnership. If we lost either side of that support, the museum would not be able to operate the way we do. So just a couple pictures of the permanent exhibits we have, and most of these slides are going to show you what they look like now versus what they looked like before. So this one I'm actually very excited about. So this is our exhibit on the Nisenan, the Native Americans who live here. And I'm using present tense on purpose. So our previous exhibit on the Nisenan was probably about 35 years old. It was very dated, and it turns out we had some sensitive materials on display that we didn't even realize were sensitive materials. We had some tribal representatives in the museum. They pointed that out to us, and we immediately pulled it all off display. I also had an intern. We've been getting great interns from Sac State for the last few years. We had an intern work with us who then went on to the Maidu Museum in Roseville. She came back to us and asked if, for her master's thesis project, if she could create a new exhibit on the Nisenan for us. So she did, and it's 99% done. We're having a party for that later in March. So that's our ag wing. Left picture is new, right picture is old. Multicultural gallery, again, picture on the left is an older one. You can see the new flooring in the other pictures. So it just made a big difference to all of our spaces to be able to do that work. We host temporary exhibits throughout the year. Frida Kahlo's Garden is the one that we opened with when we reopened last June. We've had a couple since then. That was an installation in our community garden to go with the Frida Kahlo exhibit. These are from the exhibit we had last fall, Simple Objects Related to the Campfire. This is our current exhibit. It's actually contemporary photography of migrant farm workers. It's only up through March 1st, and I really encourage you all to come in. We're going to have the photographer come and do a presentation. We're nailing down the date, but it'll be on our website and our Facebook page as soon as we get that put together. We do a ton of education programs for kids and adults at the museum, and in the community garden, we've added a lot of programming out there as well. We are obviously in the midst of revitalizing, so that is our new mission statement. It has been for a few years now. I can still call it new, though, given how old the museum is. So we did some planning. These are the 5 big overarching goals that came out of our strategic plan. So, getting ourselves more financially in order, continuing to build staff when we can, improving the facilities. You can see we've made good progress on a number of these goals already. Visitation, I'm not going to read you all these numbers, but the short version is it's gone up, which is wonderful. We are here for our community. We're here for every member of our community. So the more people that come in, the more we are meeting our mission. But I did want to point out how high of a percentage our visitors are from within Yuba City. So that is really high. So far for fiscal year 1920, we're over 78%. We partner with a lot of other local agencies to offer what we offer, to do a lot of programs and exhibit things as well. We have a great gift shop, subtle plug here. We carry a lot of made in California and made on the West Coast items and a lot of history books as well. So if you're shopping for a great gift, come on in. Current projects. We took over management of Edel Hall, the rental facility behind us, in July. The revenue is already up. We're going to hopefully do a little bit of work on the building in the next year, continue to improve the facility, continue to improve our revenue from that. We just relaunched our membership program, and so now there are a variety of levels with different benefits. We are looking at a possible expansion of the Artisan Community Garden next year, and there's a few other things that I'm this close to being able to talk about publicly, and I wish I could tell you right now because they're really exciting, but I guess I'll just have to come back. And the last one is we have contracted with an exhibit design firm to help us write a master plan. That's going to help us redevelop all of our permanent exhibits. It's going to help us identify how to tell an overarching comprehensive story of the history of the Yuba Sutter community. And I just want to drive that point home. I know I'm almost to my time limit here, but we really do consider ourselves to be the museum for the entire Yuba Sutter community. We do not restrict ourselves to talking about Sutter County stories in the museum because you all probably know even more than I do. Yuba Sutter really is one community. There's a reason why so many agencies say Yuba Sutter in their name. How many cars do we see back and forth across that bridge every day? And our goal is to tell the story correctly. You cannot do that when you're basing it on arbitrary man-made boundaries like county lines. So we're going to work towards actually becoming the Yuba Sutter Museum on paper eventually, rebrand again. But for now, just know that we do try to be inclusive for both sides of the river and for all of our community. So there will be more coming on that project in the near future as well. Thank you. So that's my presentation for you today.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you'd like to add or say? Nothing? Always a good time over there. And it's another thing besides the improved displays, and nice to also hear that your attendance, I think that's the word you use, is up.
Yeah.
But you're also becoming quite a fun venue.
Yes.
For events and whatnot, between Edel Hall and the museum itself and whatnot. So that's good. So keep up the good work. You made some really noticeable, significant, and positive changes out there.
Thank
So,
you.
Can't be easy, I'm sure.
No,
you
but
very
it's
much.
fun. So, yep. Thank you so much.
All right, like I said, we're moving item number 18 to right now. Excuse me one second. The consideration of an ordinance banning the sale of flavored tobacco and flavored vaping products in Yuba City is presented by Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. For the sake of the discussion and to get things started, this is the beginning of a process. I think some may be thinking that we're considering for approval a final ordinance tonight. That's not what this is about this evening. This evening is about a discussion amongst typically the five of us, but also with input from the public in regards to we want to continue to move forward with an ordinance that might have in it certain restrictions on flavored tobacco or vaping. With that being said, it's certainly my intent, and I believe I can speak on behalf of the rest of the council, that this process be open and transparent and include all those who are affected. This originates from presentations that we've had in these chambers from the Sutter County Health Department on tobacco, flavored tobacco, and the impact it has on children within our community. At least my purpose in bringing it forward is for us as a council to have the discussion and decide whether or not we want to do something with it. I know on my left, we have Councilwoman Espandola. She's been involved in this, with these projects for quite some time. And I know that at some point we'll be asking you to share that with us. But with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to open it up. I know there's a lot of folks in here this evening that would like to speak, and I'd rather hear from them first than have them listen to me.
All right, very good. I do have several speaker cards, but please keep in mind if you wish to speak on the item and have not filled out a card, the card is not required. It just kind of helps me move things along. And then the only order I put these in is what I always do, and that's alphabetically. So we're going to go with Miss Tammy Anderson first. Miss Anderson, or those of you who do come to the podium, if you would mind, please stating your name and I believe your city of residence, if you don't mind.
My name is Tammy Anderson, and I just moved to Live Oak from Yuba City. And I'm here today, and thank you for allowing us to speak and for moving it earlier. We appreciate that. I'm from the Public Health Department, and as the project director for Sutter County Tobacco Control Program, I'm here tonight to talk about Sutter County youth tobacco use. We were lucky enough to contract with the University of California, San Diego, to get local data from the California Youth Tobacco Survey. Normally, they choose one school and then they use it in the state data, and then they lump us together as regional data with many other counties. And so this is the first time that we've gotten clear data on what our youth are doing in regards to tobacco use and vaping. So I thought I would share that information with you here today since you haven't heard it yet. So of course we know that tobacco use is the #1 cause of preventable death in California, and it continues to be an urgent public health issue. The U.S. Surgeon General has declared an e-cigarette epidemic among youth, with national data showing skyrocketing youth use of these products. Some of the information that we've collected from the tobacco survey, we collected it from over 2,000 youth in 11 Sutter County schools. And the survey found that among Sutter County students, 30% of them have tried a tobacco product. Nearly 20% had been offered a tobacco product within the 30 days of them taking the survey. But the most alarming statistic that we found is that over 1/3 of Sutter County students who had never used a tobacco product before are susceptible to future use of tobacco products. So they are able to ask certain questions that will lead them to believe that the children will use it in the future. The question actually asks if their best friend were to ask them to use a tobacco product, would they? And they indicated that they would. So that's 1/3 of our students who've never used tobacco. The research also shows that over 43% of students in Sutter County believe that it would be easy to obtain e-cigarettes. In Sutter County, 78% of our youth shop in convenience stores, and 80% of these youth report seeing flavored tobacco ads or promotions. In 2016, we did the Healthy Stores for Healthy Communities campaign and found that in Sutter County, 100% of tobacco retailers near schools sell flavored tobacco products. The youth in our community are also 8 times more likely to see advertising for unhealthy products like tobacco and alcohol than they are for healthy products like fruit and water. Youth are also 3 times more likely to be influenced by tobacco advertising than adults are. So you have to remember that their brains aren't fully developed yet, and so they're more susceptible to what they see in our community, which means that what they see in our community can influence their behavior and their choices. 84% of Sutter County youth who currently use tobacco use a flavored tobacco product. With declining cigarette use rates, the tobacco industry is looking for a new generation of addicts. Predatory marketing directly targets youth, making these products look appealing, youth-friendly, cheap, and socially acceptable. Ads appear all over social media and often emit dangerous health effects and the extremely addictive nature of these products. The recommended strategies to address the youth vaping epidemic as well as curb traditional tobacco use are 1, a flavored tobacco sales restriction that includes e-cigarettes and menthol cigarettes, which would make tobacco less appealing and less accessible to our youth.
Tammy,
2 is adopting.
Tammy, we have 18 people, and we have a time limit. That beeper is telling me to tell you to wrap it up.
Fine.
Your point has been made, though, but go ahead.
Adopting a tobacco retailer licensing law. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Let's see here. We'll go on to Jasmine Chow. Is it Jasmine, right? Jasmine, okay. Sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Chow. I'm a manager at NetVapes here at Yuba City. I'm from Marysville. I'd like to read a statement for Jeremy Howard, one of the owners of NetVapes, as he's currently out of state and couldn't be here tonight. Vapor products were classified as a tobacco product many years ago by the state. With that came tobacco taxes and regulations. It's already one of the most regulated products on the market with a 59% tax rate. The products we manufacture are 100% up to date on all FDA deeming regulations. California in 2016 raised the age to purchase these products to 21. It is already illegal to sell these products to minors, though no penalties exist for minors in possession. Our stores are adult-only 21 and over establishments. Minors are not allowed to walk through the doors. Similar ordinances that have passed across California do nothing to stop online sales of these products. On the preliminary data on other states that have passed similar statewide bans bans are not having the impact they hoped. Face-to-face transactions where a physical ID is checked remains the strongest barrier to youth access. What a flavor ban would do is remove adults' personal freedom and choice to use a flavor that has helped them quit smoking. And adults have quit and are quitting smoking using these products, so specifically flavored nicotine products. It could also give rise to a black market of these products, much like we've seen with the recent illnesses associated with black market THC vapes. 91% of our e-liquid sales are non-tobacco flavors, all purchased by adults. You can imagine the impact such as an ordinance would have on our business. Our 12 employees and our thousands of customers that utilize a less harmful alternative to cigarettes and vaping is a harm reduction. As stated in Jeremy's email that he sent to you guys past weekend, the CDC recently released its results from its annual youth tobacco survey. Their data shows that flavors were not the #1 or not even the #2 reason teens have tried e-cigarettes. If flavors were driving the factor to youth usage, why do we tolerate the same flavors in alcohol and recreational and medicinal marijuana? Education is always one of the best remedies. I've heard from many parents and teachers that they cannot tell the difference between a nicotine vape and marijuana vape. We are more than willing to assist the city in matters if ever called upon. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Next we have, and forgive me if I mispronounce it, is it Manal Chowdhury?
Good evening. My name is Manal Chowdhury, and I'm the Secretary of Student Advocates for Sutter County, a youth coalition and club at River Valley High School. At our school, vaping has become a serious issue, with more youth becoming addicted to nicotine every day. A 2016 study found that young people vape because the products are flavored, and they believe e-cigarettes are less harmful than cigarettes. Last year, at an educational event presented by the Student Advocates for Sutter County at River Valley High School, various toxins found in e-cigarettes and vapes were displayed. Most students at the event, including those who are current e-cigarette users, were surprised and alarmed by what they have learned. They had wrongly believed that the products that they were vaping were using were harmless. One student was particularly upset by the misinformation and flung his arms and walked away muttering, "Well, I'm screwed." Thank you.
All right. Brian Cowan. Welcome, Brian. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me, Mayor Harris and council members. My name is Brian Cowan. I am currently a Sacramento resident and working with Sutter County Public Health. There we go, found it. So I want to step back a little bit as a public health worker to discuss not only the future of the youth that might go down the road of tobacco use, stress, and disease and death, but also how we got to this position, because as we all know, the adults in the room were once youth. So in public health, we see tobacco use not as a moral issue, but as a social justice issue. No person, regardless of age, race, or ethnicity, should be exposed again and again to experiences that we know are harmful. Yet tobacco companies channel more advertising, discounts, and displays of their dangerous products and the health problems that come with them into Black communities, more than white neighborhoods, and more than other communities as well. Sutter County LGBTQ youth were over 2 times more likely to use tobacco than other youth. Young people who identify as LGBTQ report high levels of stress from discrimination or social exclusion, and stress can make people more likely to use tobacco. The stress of discrimination helps to explain why, when compared to straight peers, twice as many LGBTQ youth have smoked a cigarette before the age of 13. To live up to the ideals of fairness, we must recognize these facts and ask for change. During the past decade, the tobacco industry has aggressively increased advertising and promotional campaigns placed in ethnic neighborhoods and deliberately targeted minority youth. Predatory marketing of African Americans, Hispanic, Latinos, and many other priority populations across the decades have resulted in disproportionately high use of menthol in communities of color. In California, 70% of African Americans, 42% of American Indians, 33% of Hispanic, Latino, and 30% of Asian adult cigarette smokers smoke menthol cigarettes compared to only 18% of white adult smokers. What is even more insidious is that tobacco companies have historically sponsored local family-friendly events like rodeos, festivals, racing, and cultural events to give the impression that they care about the fill-in-the-blank community. Though it was banned in 1998, they are now back in with vaping devices. There are other common marketing tactics that continue today. Communities that are predominantly low income are highly profitable in the eyes of big tobacco, so they target them in hard-hitting ways. Not only do these neighborhoods have highest density of stores selling tobacco products, but in these communities, the tobacco industry also offers the lowest prices on packs of cigarettes and products such as little flavored cigars and cigarillos, which can cost less than $1.
You guessed right. That's the red light.
That's it. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I do want to hand a list of 50 communities in California that have tobacco passed flavored tobacco restriction and also a model policy. Oh, one more.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Move forward to, is it Samantha Garnish?
All right, hello everyone. My name is Samantha Garnish and I live here in Yuba City, and I am the Vice President of the Student Advocates for Sutter County, a youth coalition and a club at River Valley High School. I have seen the new vaping devices. They are sleek, appealing, and electronic. Our generation has been born and raised in an electronic age, so just seeing these devices have become a normal and natural thing. The tobacco industry tries to trick us into believing that their products are harmless with their flavors and electronic devices as if they know what they're doing. Tobacco is known to cause illness and death, but when you see it being sold on a shelf in a store near schools, you wonder, if it's really that bad, why are they allowed to sell it? Recently, my friend was found smoking in the bathroom. From all the constant tobacco use she was doing, she became skinny and weak. Through the Student Advocates of Sutter County, we try to educate about the harms of tobacco and vaping to our peers, but we are small in numbers and we can't do it alone. We need the support of the community. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Samantha. Julie Howard, you're up.
Hi there. My name is Julie Howard. I am a respiratory therapist and case manager. I've been a registered respiratory therapist for over 35 years with a focus on the needs, medical needs and education for the needs of COPD patients through providing pulmonary rehab, cardiac rehab, smoking cessation counseling in the last 4 years as a COPD case manager. I previously worked at Feather River Hospital in Paradise for about 15 years and started a program here. After the campfire, I came here and started working at Adventist Health Right Out. I have worked with over 1,500 pulmonary patients, most of them with COPD. Approximately 85% of these patients were current or ex-smokers. And I cannot tell you the countless number of stories that patients have told me wishing they had quit smoking, wishing they had never smoked before. So I work on the other end of the spectrum, but I think if we start when they're young and vulnerable, we really need to, sorry, I'm really nervous. We really need to look at banning vaping and flavored tobacco products before they even start. Flavored tobacco is a key way that tobacco companies get youth to start smoking. 80% of teen smokers started out with a flavored tobacco product. The tobacco industry will be less able to entice youth with its deadly products. Tobacco leads to a lifetime of addiction and increased risk for many diseases. I could name a few, but I think you know them. Coronary artery disease, strokes. I mean, there are so many different products that are in tobacco. It's mind-boggling that it's still legal. Fewer people will die from tobacco. Tobacco is still the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States. COPD used to be, and chronic respiratory issues used to be the #4 killer in the United States. It's now #3. Obviously, heart disease and stroke are #1 and #2. So I urge you the City Council to seriously consider moving forward with banning tobacco and flavored tobacco products, especially targeting our youth. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen, you're up.
My name's Karen Leggett, and I'm a Marysville resident. And I used to be an advocate at the Capitol for 4 years for children against pot, tobacco, everything that's going to destroy our children. I'm on quite a few organizations to stop the pot and the vaping and the CBDs, all of it, to protect children because I have so many stories that are killing our youth. And so that one thing I wanted to tell you, I go to San Brandon Park in Yuba City often. There is a bunch of street people that sit there all day long waiting on the youth to show up. And when I see the youth, I tell them, go the other way, because these people are trying to ruin your life. And sometimes I have called the police on them because they get aggressive. They start following the kids. And then I step in and I tell them, back off, because I'm not going to go ahead and let people ruin kids' lives. And in Marysville, when the pot dispensary opened up by the hospital, I witnessed 3 teenage kids on the corner. An adult guy came from the pot dispensary to the corner, and I assume he gave them some drugs, the pot. And then I called the police, and evidently the guy took off before the police could get there. My thing for 40 years now is to protect children. Please consider banning it in Yuba City, because there's so many kids that are ruining their lives. They're dying at the profits of these people. They don't care. They do not care. And all they care is that money that they're going to get. They don't care about the kids' lives. Please protect our youth.
All right. Thank you very much, Karen. Dr. Fong Lu. There she is.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Fong Lu. I'm the new Bi-County Public Health Officer. I'm here to voice my support for the consideration of an ordinance banning the sale of flavored tobacco and vaping products. I just want to really reiterate what a lot of the speakers have said, that these flavored tobacco products and vaping products are really like the gateway entry for a lot of the youth. And your mind doesn't fully develop until age 25. So even if you try it and then you are exposed, it's very, very hard to quit. And I've tried with all my patients. I'm a primary care physician also, and most of my patients struggle 5th time, 8th time to quit. And they don't succeed because they started very, very young, age 12, age 16. In addition, is that most of the youth do not realize that these flavored products are actually tobacco. They think that just because it's flavored, they link it to like candy. And it's very troubling in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Claudia Medina, welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Medina, resident of Yuba City. So I'm going to talk about just some of the health effects of nicotine and menthol and mint. So nicotine is one of the most toxic of all poisons. It can rewrite the brain, especially those particularly vulnerable in the developing years from adolescent to mid-20s. Especially nicotine's negative effects on the young developing brain, which finish maturing by the age of 25. And it's associated with the prefrontal cortex ability for judgment, attention, and behavior, contributing to mental health issues. Due to nicotine's impact on the brain receptors, it can alter the brain's development and lead to impaired cognitive functioning later in life by affecting a teen's attention, learning, and memory. It can worsen stressors already challenging in adolescents, like learning difficulties, irritability, and anxiety. Furthermore, the aerosol that is produced by these products, such as vape pens, pods, and mods, contain ultrafine particles, heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead, cancer-causing chemicals, and flavorings such as diacetyl and other untested for inhalation. However, it's often flavors like menthol and mint that are particularly treacherous. The tobacco industry creates these flavors to make cigarettes more appealing and is seen as a starter product for youth. Among California's high school students who smoke cigarettes, 44% use menthol cigarettes. Younger users tend to perceive menthol as safer. All it really is an additive to make tobacco easier to start and harder to quit. Menthol creates a cooling effect, reducing the harshness of smoke and suppressing cough. Although the FDA banned all flavors in cigarettes in 2009 to protect youth, they excluded menthol from this ban. If menthol cigarettes ban had been enacted in 2011, it could have saved 320,000 lives. The issue here is that menthol products are disproportionately used by smokers who are young, female, and part of a sexual minority or part of a racial or ethnic minority. Over half of the students who smoke and vape use mint and menthol flavored products. Menthol facilitates an addiction disease and creates health equity issues for our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Erica Melchor.
Hi, good evening. I'm Erica Melcher, and I live in Yuba City. It's okay, it happens all the time. I live in the community. I am a parent. I have 3 children. One is a high schooler. So I often hear a lot about vaping and what's happening on campuses. But also, formerly, I worked with Sutter County Schools in providing tobacco prevention. So I'm really familiar with the topic of vaping and flavored tobacco, and so it is out there. Our youth are using it. The access is very easily for them to obtain. And as a parent, I want to, my goal is to prevent youth access and obtaining those products, prevent that they even initiate using these products. It's important, I think, as a parent living in a community where you do have support from other family members, friends, the schools, other organizations, that you feel supported in that. In addition, working with the schools, I have heard other youth say that, oh, it helped my parent quit with using regular cigarettes. However, there has not been an approved e-cigarette approved by the FDA that it is essentially a product. In addition, the concentrated nicotine liquid is poisonous, and 1 teaspoon is lethal to an infant. And that's just information that, we are working with the schools and working with the Tobacco Coalition in our community. We're aware of that information. Lastly, I'd like to say that I think it's wonderful that so many people have come together, and this is something that you're looking at. So I definitely strongly encourage you to look at this further. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Katie Moose. If Cynthia can queue up after for time.
Hello, my name is Katie Moose, and I'm actually a resident of Fair Oaks, but I work for a tobacco prevention project called STAND, and we're working with several rural communities in North Valley and Gold Country on tobacco prevention efforts, including Oroville City, which I'm really excited and happy to tell you that they just voted like 5 minutes ago to ban the sale of flavored tobacco products. And I know a lot of rural communities are considering this. I started smoking when I was 14. And I look back now that I happen to now work in tobacco control, who would have thought, and, thinking about why did I start in the first place. And something I know now that I didn't know then is when I was in high school in the 90s, 30% of high schoolers in California were smoking cigarettes at that time. So, I was smoking with a lot of other people who were smoking around with me. And that rate has dropped in California. I mean, we're looking at like 2 to 5% high schoolers are smoking cigarettes these days, which is an incredible, amazing achievement. And, I think a lot of it has to do with the changing of social norms. I mean, I don't have to worry about my daughter ever smoking. She never really sees anybody doing it. And a lot of those social norm changes happen because of policy changes. And, you might hear some retailers, and it could be true, they're going to say, we don't sell to youth. And maybe that's true, but I do know that the Sutter County Sheriff's Office has been conducting shoulder tap stings over the past year. They've done a bunch of them. So I would ask you to have them come out and share their findings with you at some point. But what they've said is that they're almost always successful, like almost 100% of the time. They're getting people to purchase alcohol and tobacco for underage youth. So even if the stores aren't selling to youth, they're still getting it from the stores. So thank you very much for considering looking at this topic.
Thank you, ma'am. Cynthia. Man Reed is next.
My name is Cynthia Peshek, and I live in Yuba City. I'm also the Outreach Program Manager at Ampla Health, and I'm here today as the chair for the Sutter Healthy and Safe Neighborhoods Coalition. The coalition includes representatives from community-based organizations, local health care agencies, schools, individuals in our communities that have a special interest in healthy communities. We work to create healthy and safe community by reducing risk factors and increasing protective factors. The tobacco industry is targeting a new generation of kids with flavored tobacco products, as you've heard tonight, through low prices, easy access, and new electronic devices. And this is why the Healthy and Safe Neighborhoods Coalition's current priority is to reduce youth tobacco use and access through community education, advocacy, and policy. My 22-year-old son is currently using the Juul. Because this was presented as safe initially, I am challenged with counteracting the information that he received from the industry. It is so disheartening as a parent to watch your son use something that's so blatantly toxic that can seriously potentially harm him. And I know I am not the only parent that is experiencing this. So today, we actually have some letters of support from organizations that support this conversation that we're having, and we also have signature pages from individuals in the community that support protecting our kids from tobacco and nicotine addiction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And last, at least as far as speaker cards go, is Manreet Sager.
Hi, my name is Manreet Sager, and I'm the president of the Student Advocates for Sutter County, a youth coalition and a club at River Valley High School. There has been an increase in kids vaping. It has gotten so out of control that our school has to lock certain bathrooms. During instruction time, only one bathroom is unlocked for kids to use. It is inconvenient and can take away from learning when the only bathroom is far from your classroom. In my school year, I once saw a fellow student vaping in class and no one had noticed. Because e-cigarettes come in small devices and do not smell like traditional cigarettes, kids are able to hide them and vape in class behind the teacher's back. Because I see it so often, it sometimes feels like everyone is vaping and kids think it is only okay and won't hurt them. As teens, we urge you to help teachers and parents who are doing their best to protect us from nicotine addiction by banning flavored tobacco, including e-cigarettes and methylated cigarettes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Like I said, that's all of the speaker cards on this item, but if anyone else would care to say anything, we'd be happy to hear your opinion or your thoughts on the issue. All right, with that being said, we'll bring it back to Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for those who chose to engage in the public comment. I guarantee that as this process moves on, there'll be other opportunities to speak. What I'd like to do, if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, is pass this over to Councilwoman Espandola for a few words.
Yep.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Having worked in tobacco initiatives prior to becoming a city council member, I'm really familiar with the topic of this issue of health risk. It does become a health risk issue. It's an environmental issue that is created in communities. I do applaud all the work that has been done through the health department and the schools and these young people for coming in and sharing their perspectives. And I also recognize that local businesses have something to sell for adults. The thing that I've seen conflicting over the years with tobacco initiative issues is how do you manage and control use by minors compared to adults that have the legal right to make their own decisions. And so the Tobacco Control Act allows for prevention and environmental issues of monies to be used in communities to minimize some of the hazards of environmental issues in the area. So they're here talking about, retailers, ordinances, things that could be set up in a community aspect. The work that I was involved with within the schools and doing more of the tobacco issues and prevention. When I originally started the work, I recognized that young people were smoking cigarettes. That was the thing, kids were taking off from school, running to the parks, and everyone knew that that was the park to go smoke at. And police and other people knew how to rally up the kids and get them back and cite them, and then get them some sensation coursework or something to try to help them with the use. But this has taken over 20 years to reduce the prevent the use of youth utilizing tobacco products. Most recently, what I've seen is this surge of electronic device use. An electronic device could be a jewel, it could be whatever other aspect, and it's sold online, so there's, options to buying it online, but that is also sold in retail, brick and mortar, local businesses in the community. And to bring in ordinances, that's discussion, I think, that to be fair with my fellow council members, I would suggest that we have a clear workshops and discussion of these items. I think that the flavored tobacco electronic devices, from what I see in schools, it is being used, and it is not regulated by state, and school officials have a hard time keeping track of kids, bringing them on campuses. But how do these ordinances minimize the access to underage use? And then the other part of it, that the FDA has not appropriately identified as electronic devices as a method to stop smoking. There's other medical terms that medical doctors or specialists will recommend about that. But I think that if I would be open to have some workshops and discussion to be able to bring everyone on board to say, perhaps there could be some room for ordinances. Let's look at what other cities are doing. Let's look at how we have a particular grant that our city police has been doing some shoulder tapping as well. And so there is some work that's being done on that. I think as a city, we're doing some of this work without even, I think, completely recognizing that we're helping minimize some of the use by our youth, hopefully. Underage use, I would say that. So I would propose and be supportive of a workshop if that was the direction we would want to move forward with.
Thanks. I think before I turn it over to and conclude my thoughts, a fair amount of folks are in favor. And there are a fair amount of folks, given by the volume of emails that hit my mailbox, that are concerned that it's going to impact their business. I don't think anybody discounts the fact that there are health risks involved with vaping and flavored tobacco. As a city, as Councilwoman Espandola commented on, it's difficult you don't want to get it, at least I personally do not want to get into a situation where we are, dictating what an adult has access to. But I'm deeply concerned, again, thank you for the information tonight, even more concerned about the effect these products are having on our youth and what that ends up turning into. You hear comments about government being transparent and got to involve all the stakeholders, but this is one that demands that kind of discussion. And I think I would concur with Councilwoman Espandola that some study sessions with all the stakeholders are in the room, so that we can hear and find the best way going forward that we can try to interfere with the opportunity for these devices and this substance to get in the hands of our youth. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, very well. Any comment from you two gentlemen? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I would absolutely concur. This needs to have further discussion. When we look around, there's a lot of other municipalities that have had this discussion, and I think this council has already proven over the past year that we don't do things on our own. We're going to vet it out. We're going to have the discussions very open and transparent and get the community involved. I think we should look at not only protecting just our youth, because I do see the kids vaping. I see them still with cigarettes, and I just thank God that my kids don't do that. But at the same time, I'm curious to know, you mentioned vaping and your son's vaping. What is the secondhand smoke from that? Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to walk into a bank or a restaurant or a store and someone walks out and takes a big puff and it's all over the air and you almost have to walk through it. What is that doing to myself? And, looking at where some rights begin and other rights end, it's one of those things we got to be very careful. But at the same time, is my health being put in jeopardy by someone else exercising their right that's violating my right? These are adult conversations that we need to have. And I would say let's look at municipalities that's taken the first step, which is banning the flavored tobacco and vaping. But let's also look at other measures that other communities have done to protect their communities and kids. And I mentioned to our city manager earlier, the city of Beverly Hills did something pretty astronomical roughly a year ago. And it had to do with vaping in public and everything. So not saying we're going there, but if we're going to have one part of the conversation, we really need to have the entire conversation. And I would like to see us kind of look at all, because our youth, they're not really the next generation for tomorrow. They're the leaders of today. They're going to be the ones that's going to be sitting in our seats in just a few years. They're the ones that's going to start up businesses. They're the workforce for the next 10 years, and we need them healthy, and we need them well educated. And so I would like for us to look at everything that involves the quality of life issues for our city, for all of our residents, not just the banning.
So explore all options.
Absolutely.
All right. One more shot? Good? All right. I think it's pretty clear. You message received, sir? All right. Looking forward to some additional information. We do want to hear all the sides, all options, so we can make a clear and reasonable decision on this. But we will move forward. That's the next step in the process. Thank you again to all of you who took the time out of your evening. Yes?
Excuse me. May I add to the request? I also would like to know, and I think you've made this presentation in the past, and maybe I just know it, but the number of vaping shops, I just did a very quick little Google search, and I found 9, and based on our population size, we have about 69,000 people. I'm kind of guessing. So the access of vape per person is about 8,000 people access per shop. So you're asked, so then you break down that 69,000, we have about approximately 23,000 of our population are children. And so about a quarter of our community is made up of underage, kinder to 18-year-olds or what have you. And from my experience, I have heard the youngest age that the most recent, last year, was a 4th grader, with a vaping. And so when I like data, because I think it's important that you bring us that clarity of the data. And if the business owners are going to bring us information, I like to see your data as well. Because the anecdotal, the emotional are important. They give us, some of that insights, but the clarity of the data of what is actually happening. So if you're telling, if you mentioned to me, ma'am, that you have about 12 employees and your business is on Colusa Highway, and so your revenue, whatever you're earning of that year, how much of your tax is coming back to the city? I would be interested to know those kinds of very specific information. And if you, that's what I'm looking at, holistic, big picture. Thank you.
All right. So once again, thank you to all of those folks who came out tonight and shared your points of view on the topic. We're definitely more to come, and we're looking forward to hearing from you with any additional information you might provide. So thank you very much. So if you want to step out, I'll take a 30-second break for you to do that. Why would she? Yeah, we're going on to number 4 here. Well, actually, she probably thinks we're breaking until she returns, so we'll do that. We'll wait for her. Anybody have any public comment on anything on or off the agenda? You do, ma'am? Okay. Why don't you come on up while we're waiting for Councilwoman Espindola to return? Did you happen to call 24 hours in advance?
No, I did.
All right, so technically you got 3 minutes.
I'm going to be quicker than that.
Quicker than that.
My comment might be coming a little before you're addressing item number 9.
You can wait until that item if you'd like, or
Okay.
you can, or you will do it now.
It's just
if you're going to do it now, though, I would like to wait for Ms. Espindola to return.
Okay.
But you can stay there. Just give us, apparently, hopefully not very long.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a 1 or a 2. We'll find out. Come on, it's all good. There we go. Welcome, ma'am.
Lisa Matson, Yuba City. You are probably going to address this, and I might be asking this earlier, but I would like to comment about the camping and storage of personal property. On Live Oak Boulevard and Northgate, there's been the seeds of an encampment starting with one tent that's been there for a few weeks and now a second tent. And I would like to know if there is a plan, if any, what can we do to prevent that from becoming another Second Street, that mess that was down there, and having that explode into another encampment? Is there anything that we can do? Will that be addressed? And I suggested that you are able to. Thank you.
And ma'am, are you Lisa Matson?
Yes.
Okay, and I think you probably have an answer being volunteered by your police chief right behind you.
Beautiful.
So last week, based on the last year's budget, we were able to bring a homeless liaison coordinator on board, and he started about, I think, Monday. He's been hitting the road running, very familiar with where you're talking about. I, in fact, drove by there today, and there's one tent up there that's abandoned. So yeah, that's on our list. We don't want to have anything like that flare up, and that would be covered by part of this ordinance, referencing by the place where it's stationed so close to the levee. Absolutely, we're going to take a look at that, and I saw it, so thank you.
Chief Landon?
One question for you.
I just haven't had a chance to get this to you. At our most recent LAFCO meeting, Anita Elphick, Unity Forest Products, had raised an issue at her business. And maybe, at least for the public's knowledge, when you get into these multi-jurisdictional things, I know you guys have cooperative agreements with Sutter County. This happens to be a city and a county area, whatever. Perhaps you could just talk about that in your efforts collectively to combat what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely, Vice Mayor. So obviously, we have different jurisdictional areas that have different levels of rural and urban. Yuba City, we've had an ordinance that we've been enforcing regularly. The ordinance that's being proposed for the second reading today is the exact same ordinance, almost verbatim, for the one that Sutter County had put into effect. Sutter County's is now in effect. They have a plan moving forward of, I don't want to get too much into what they're doing, but we are going to work with them hand in hand. We've been working with Sheriff Barnes, Sheriff Anderson, Chief Sachs, and all the other surrounding agencies to make sure that we have the exact same plan. We're working on this as a team, addressing all the areas together collaboratively, and also providing resources for the people so that we're not just going in there and moving them out, but we're giving them a resource and opportunity to go to some other place, so they're not just relocating from one area to the other. But as far as multi-jurisdictional, I know that the county right now is starting to address 2nd Street, closer down by Whitaker Hall in that area. And as people are moving out and they're doing some type of a lien process where they're giving in their cars, lien's the wrong word, but they're towing the trailers, the campers out of there and replacing them with concrete blocks. Similarly, that Shanghai Bend area, I know that's very high on the priority list for the sheriff, that entire area, and I know that now they have we are moving forward together.
One more question here, I believe.
Yep. Through the mayor. Chief, that property on Live Oak Boulevard, I'm very familiar with that as well. I pass it almost daily myself. Is there any coordination that we can have between code enforcement? Because not only do we have the tent that popped up here a few weeks ago, but there's been a Dodge Durango on blocks for probably the last month. There's broken down trailers. It's real inviting for a lot of things. Is there any mechanism for you to coordinate, or is that through City Hall to address some of those issues?
Yeah, we have a brand new department head working with.
So Ben Moody, the new department head overseeing code enforcement. So my first 2 weeks here, that's hit the radar. One of the first items that come up. So code enforcement is definitely aware of that site, and we're working with the city attorney's office on what we could do to strengthen our codes. And then also, we've reached out to the property owner and the leasee to put some pressure on them to pull that trailer off, get rid of that vehicle, and then also work to is a win-win, because we're really pushing. We want to start pushing on them that if they clean it up, it avoids these future problems. And so it's been relayed to the property owner to get rid of that, the brush, the shrubbery, the dumping, to prevent that dumping, and then also that camping behind that block wall. And so we're coordinating with PD and code enforcement, LD1, with it being in that multi-jurisdiction boundary, so we get a plan of attack and work forward.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any general public comment on things not on the agenda? All right, so I'm going to take my other discretion here. I'm going to move. We're going to go ahead with item number 9 right now, since you're standing there. It's kind of evolved into that anyway. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you. So the item before you, it's the second time it's been before you, and this is basically the camping and storage of personal property ordinance. The recommendation is to adopt an ordinance adding Chapter 5.23, Camping and Storage of Personal Property on Private and Public Property, to Title 5 of the Yuba City Municipal Code, and waive the second reading. The fiscal impact of this ordinance, we don't know at this point in time, because it is going to require us to have some type of a storage setup to store property, and then removing the trash and other items that are not reclaimed by the campers. So the initial purpose of this is improve the quality of life through a regionally consistent camping and storage of personal property ordinance while preserving the rights of all the citizens. And because I went through this last week, I'm not going to go through too much of it. The proposed ordinance provides specific rules related to areas of the city that are not safe to camp, and specifically in areas that are designated as floodways or in areas that are within the water side of our levees. Places reasonable restrictions on where people may store their personal belongings, and provides for specific noticing and time requirements for individuals that are violating the ordinance, as well as uniform procedures for removal of personal property, including the personal property storage, recovery, and disposal. The process includes provisions for an informal hearing process so that the individuals have the ability to exercise their right for appealing the determination that their personal property is creating a hazardous condition. So the proposed ordinance is being implemented across the Yuba Sutter County law enforcement jurisdictions to create a uniform policy. And again, I pointed out the fiscal impact. So the recommendation is, again, as stated above, where I thought it was, never mind, I'll read it. Adopt an ordinance adding Chapter 5.23 Camping and Storage of Personal Property on Private and Public Property to Title V of the Yuba City Municipal Code and waive the second reading. And the alternatives are to provide a direction to staff as to changes which should be incorporated into the ordinance or take no action on the ordinance at this time.
All right, do we have any further public comment on the item? All right.
Through the mayor?
Yep.
I'd like to move to adopt an ordinance adding Chapter 5.23, Camping and Storage of Personal Property on Private and Public Property to Title V, the Public Welfare, Morals, and Conduct of the Yuba City Municipal Code, and waive the second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Very well. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman.
Backing up to consent calendar, all matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Would anyone from the public like to speak on any of these items? Would anybody from the council like to remove an item?
Through the mayor, I would request that we remove item number 7, approve tenant commissioner appointment to the Regional Housing Authority.
Very well. And if any other requests? All right, we'll go ahead and move to action on items 5, 6, and 8.
Through the mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar, items 5, 6, and 8 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? None. They're very well. So we'll come back to number 7. You have the floor, sir.
Through the mayor. The item here asks for council's approval of a tenant commissioner to the Regional Housing Authority. Unfortunately, included in the packet was no information about who the appointee or recommended appointee was, and I would like to have that information before I approve. So I would recommend that we postpone that till our next meeting.
That's reasonable. You have a comment?
No, I'll second that.
All right, we'll go ahead and do that. Mr. City Manager, do you copy that? Yes. All right, very well. Moving on to number 10. Adoption of rezone 19-2 for Dollar General project. Ben Moody. Look at that title next to that name.
This one's shorter. So it's officially Development Services Director.
All right.
All right. So good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So the item I have before you is the second time before you regarding the rezone 1902 of this subject area along Garden Highway to community commercial. So the project setting is above. A little past history here regarding Planning Commission for the approval of the tentative parcel map, or approval of the parcel map. I want to be clear on that with a slide that this was, the Planning Commission approved the creation of the parcel map, and then the development plan and the GPA and the rezone were recommended by the Planning Commission to City Council. And then City Council approved the general plan amendment and the environmental assessment at their December 17th meeting. And then with this being an ordinance, we're going to, this is the second time before you with the second reading to introduce and confirm converting the site to community commercial to support the proposed development plan. And so 1.82 acres, and through the analysis we found that was conforming to the existing neighborhood, and with the traffic analysis performed on it, and we didn't see any conflicts. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any public comment on the item? All right, back to council for any comment or a motion.
Through the mayor, I
Yes.
just wanted to, and I think we talked about this before, Ben, but I wanted to confirm on the lighting issue. Was that resolved, or any other concerns about that, or?
So
We
when
talked about that in December, but refresh my memory of.
So with this project, the conditions of approval requires a new streetlight to be placed, and that will be built per city standards. And then the on-site lighting will meet city standards where we have that threshold and not, with the existing wall there and the setbacks and the staff reviews that at staff, making sure the lighting complies with standards.
Right, okay, thank you for reminding me, thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to adopt an ordinance approving rezoning 19-02 and waive the second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you, Ben. And we go to number 11, Bogue Stewart Master Plan.
Okay, so similar in the stance that it's a second time before you. And then what you have before you right now is in regards to the Bogue Stewart Master Plan related to adopting an ordinance to approve the pre-annexation zoning for the Bogue Stewart Master Plan. So at your last meeting in December, we did a review of the general plan amendment, the master plan, and DAs regarding the 741 acre plan area in the south side of Yuba City. We went through the history that this has been an ongoing project, longstanding project that we're getting towards over the hump, I would say, towards getting this completed with the most recent action in December by your council to approve the EIR, the general plan amendment 1405, the specific plan amendment 1605, and we introduced this ordinance to approve the pre-annexation zoning that basically expands the city's-wide zoning to be consistent with that amended general plan amendment and master plan. So with that, I have a few slides that show the boundary area, the phases, Newcomb Ranch, Kells East, and the remainder, the land use. And with that, I recommend adopt an ordinance approving the pre-annexation zoning 14-04 and waive the second reading. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any public comment on the matter? All right. Ma'am, if you have a question, we'd love to hear it, but we need to ask you to come to the podium, please, because we're on TV right now with microphone needs to pick you up. Your question was if there's housing involved, yes, there is. But if you have more than that, I need to ask you to come to the podium, please. Sure.
I live on Carson Drive. It's not near, but I live on Carson Drive near River Valley High School, and I noticed we don't have a park. And I was just wondering if there's going to be a park in this community, because I think communities, once they get a certain size, they should include a park.
All right, ma'am.
Jessica, Montana.
Jessica, Montana. And you say you live near River Valley High School?
That's not near, it's just my concern that future housing developments should include a park, depending on their size.
It can, I believe it contains more than one, but we'd be happy to get you a map of the proposal. All right. Ben, would you maybe be able to help her out with that?
Yeah, the Bogue Stewart Master Plan definitely considers the general plan policies regarding the minimum parks, and this project's actually over-parked in the sense that it's more than those general plan thresholds due to dual use on some of the open space for the storm drain ponds and how we propose to maybe use different levels of those ponds for fields or different activities. So in this land use plan, the green pretty much shows community parks versus neighborhood parks for kind of the smaller areas. So all of the green are potential parks and open space.
Does that help you out? Okay, good. Any other questions up here? All right. Ben, I must say that I've got a couple calls. I know it's not in the area here. Actually more than a couple calls, and we've also had it publicly expressed the concern for traffic at the school there. A developer at least willing to talk about maybe helping out with some improvements for traffic by chance? I'm just kind of curious where they stand.
Yeah, I would definitely, I hear your concern. I've definitely heard those in the office from many different individuals regarding Stewart, just with that being a really narrow county designed road that gets this flux of traffic to the school and nobody can kind of get out and it's kind of dangerous. And so the developer's representative is here tonight also, but it's really going to come down to the city and how we work through this finance plan and what we establish for the city's goals when we start using those impact fees. It's going to be phased in where they're going to start on Bogue Road toward the north and then move their way south. So there's not going to be immediate traffic where it comes down Phillips, because this Phillips Road's not going to be connected for years to come. But when it does, then you have this impact where residents will come here and add to that school problem depending on how they get built and then come over. And so we're going to need to work at a staff level with Public Works and the development on the timing and then what improvements we're going to be able to do. And when those impact fee credits come in, how, if we're going to prioritize certain parts of Bogue Road and Stewart so we alleviate some of those issues. And so definitely concerns are heard. And at the staff level, when the developments start to move forward, we're going to have to figure out how to prioritize those and figure out what the actual improvement's going to be.
Okay, so you're aware of the concern with it's been heard and it's going to be in the list of priorities once we get the impact fees coming in.
Yeah.
All right. Grace, did you have something?
Thank you, through the mayor. So Ben, you and I have talked about the potential timeline of development. Actually, that first shovel that we hopefully go out there and take a picture, because I'm not shoveling a whole lot. But when are we heading there? When are we doing that first phase one?
Sean might be able to answer some more specifics on it, but currently we're developing less than 50 single-family residential homes at this time. We're proposing, I think they talked about 100 homes a year to at least make this feasible to happen.
Right.
And Sean, how many homes are with Newcomb? I can't remember.
Sean Menard with MHM Engineering,
Right.
1204 East Street, Marysville. What we said during the city council meeting was approximately the first shovel or first house you'll see built out here is going to not occur in 2021. I mean 2020. It'll probably occur sometime in 2021. Just if everything goes smoothly, all the entitlements, we still have to go through LAFCO. We're not done yet, so there's still a lot of hurdles permitting to go through. So the earliest you'll see any ground movement is 2021. Then it'll probably take a 5, like Ben said, the absorption. And again, one of the things I don't know which button is to push. Is it the arrow? Top one? Our client's property is just this area. Newcomb is 160 acres. Kells is 90 acres. The whole project is 740 acres.
Right.
So we're only a small portion of the whole thing. But when I'm talking is Newcomb and Kells, and the earliest you'll see it is 2021, but it could push into 2022. But it's just, we're going to try to do everything we can while this market is as good as it is. We have to work through some, all the fees and all that we're dealing with. So
Right.
It's an ongoing project.
Well, people keep asking me that when's the development to happen and to when would these parks and the roads. So potentially, we still haven't even gone through the impact fee changes of what we are potentially maybe as a council, so that in the financial reporting that to demonstrate that you're able to actually develop all this is still, all of that is still occurring. So for community members, thinking, oh, this is going to happen within, it could be a potential year to 2 years, 3-year stretch if things get tied up in areas, but hopefully not. And hopefully there'll be some housing that's available for people that can afford them here in this area. Thank you.
Again, to reiterate, so 2 to 3 years before shovel one. Right. And then as the absorption rate comes down, we move forward.
Mr. Moody, through the mayor. Yeah, the mayor mentioned the level of comment. The comments that I continue to receive are the traffic in front of Riverbend School. And my understanding is we own, or we are responsible, for the north portion of that road, and the county would currently, and the county's responsible for the south portion of the road in front of the school right now, correct?
So I'm looking over at Diana. I believe we own the full right-of-way in front of Riverbend Elementary School. And so, it turns into county jurisdiction, but on the south side of the road. So for that segment just in front of the school, we take care of maintain north and south, or east and west.
The level of public feedback for the access on Stewart Road in front of Riverbend is significant. And so perhaps Mr. Menard can talk about, or you can, as far as phasing, and I think you talked about it, is, the use of those fees will be a decision that's made by a council at the time those begin to be collected. But that is an issue for this particular, it seems to be a significant issue for those folks who want to comment on Bogue Stewart Master Plan, is that, the access to the school and the potential traffic, because it's an issue now, it's only going to get worse. What's the city's plan to address that on the short term as this project begins to develop?
So I guess being on the spot, not kind of totally understanding all of the concerns, I've heard a lot of concerns about just the volume of traffic on Stewart Road with it being a narrow, low visibility road. And so currently it's in Sutter County's jurisdiction, with it not prioritized as a priority project. When this project, if Bogue Stewart gets approved, master tax exchange agreement goes through, sphere of influence gets updated, and this area comes into the city, and it will come in through phases of annexation. With the development, we're going to have to look at where can we widen, where can we prioritize, as a city, with the small pot of impact fee money that we have. How do we look at that segment, and how do we address it? Can we do some striping at the school for parking schools, so there's not that conflict where sometimes where people park, it's a real wide area on the north side and they're having conflicts. We could take a close look in that area where there's easy requirements. Also with the water line that we're proposing for Berry School, we're proposing to put it on the shoulder, on the north shoulder. So that would provide a 5-foot wider walking area. So basically when we do the trench rehabilitation for that water line, we'd basically add a bike lane, also widening the road. So taking a look at those and how to use the available funds that we have to address those concerns for widening and the access. And I could be happy to work with the Public Works Department and see if we could come up with some different plans. If you have any specific concerns, besides the narrowness. But it gets a little complicated now for the area that's in the county's jurisdiction. But definitely we could look at anything that might be relevant regarding the drop-off pickup that we can handle now.
I guess the history goes back to the time when I was still involved with the city. Is we place these schools, and then they end up being huge choke points. And I'll use Blevin Road as an example, even Bridge Street School, et cetera. What was do you know, and maybe this is a topic to bring back, but what was the plan when Riverbend Elementary School was developed for the roadways in front of it? Certainly they had to consider the growth that was going to. Is there a plan in the can already for access down that road to accommodate the students?
So the plan for Riverbend School is that road ultimately gets built out to be a standard that meets a collector with basically a lane in each direction with a turn lane. So it's wide enough to handle that volume. A lot of times historically what happens with schools is that it's zoned for a school, or the school comes in and picks a site, but there's no review at the city level. It just goes straight to the state, they do what they want, and then all of a sudden we're stuck with it and kind of handling it.
Very familiar with that.
And which is frustrating, and we've been trying to work with the schools more proactively, because over the last decade and a half, you have seen with this push from the schools that they're starting to realize, hey, they need these drop-off lanes and different things that actually are functional. And so they're starting to have some retrofit projects come through once in a while. I think down on Lincoln, at Lincrest, it was a Lincrest school on the east side there, had a little project. And then again, they're strapped for funding and they always push the problem onto the city, but it's really partially created because there was never an initial review to handle that. And so we proactively work through our traffic department and PD to see what we could do to facilitate it, but it staggered the times, you name it, open to any idea to try to alleviate the problem.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ben. How'd you like that? On the spot question like that. It's important though, the traffic is, it's a very valid concern. So hopefully it's on the high end of the priority list when we come down to that point.
Yeah, and what I've been telling concerned citizens, Mr. Teague, neighbors up and down Stewart Road, is that really currently there is no plan. It's in the county. There's no funding for it. It's not prioritized. With this plan, at least we've set a standard for what that road's supposed to look like through our general plan and the master plan, and we're going to collect funds that could actually be utilized to that. And then we're hoping through those various projects we can start whittling away at making those improvements.
Very good, thank you. All right, back to council for any action recommended.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Move to adopt an ordinance approving pre-annexation zoning RZ 14-04 and waive the second reading.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. We'll go to number 12. Development agreement for Newcomb Ranch.
Okay, very similar. Item was before you for the second time before you tonight is to adopt an ordinance to establish a development agreement, which is basically that binding agreement between the city and the developer spelling out the specific terms of the project. And Grace, to ask your question, to talk about timeframes, this basically sets the development standards and timeline for that subdivision map to be good for 20 years with extension. So a project of this size, it's typical that you set that timeline of 20 years plus the extension. So we know it's going to take some time to build out. I should have brought one up. Oh, thank you. So just a couple quick pictures here. Again, regarding Newcomb, it's on the east side of 99 between Bogue and Stewart. It was before the Planning Commission on the 13th, which would contingently approve the subdivision map 1406, 1407, and then recommended approval of the development agreement. And then on December 17, 2019, the ordinance was introduced to the council. And so with that, I recommend that we adopt the ordinance approving the development agreement 1901 with Newcomb Ranch LLC, property owner and developer for the development of the Newcomb Ranch subdivision, tentative subdivision map 1406 and tentative subdivision map 1407, and waive the second reading. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any member of the public care to comment? All right, entertain a motion.
Through the mayor. Move to adopt an ordinance approving development agreement 19-01 with Newcomb Ranch LLC, property owner and developer for the development of Newcomb Ranch subdivisions, TSM, tentative subdivision map 14-06, and tentative subdivision map 14-07, waive the second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? None. Thank you, Ben. Number 13, Kells East Ranch subdivisions.
All right, so a mirror image of the last item. It's regard to Kells East Development Agreement, which establishes that binding agreement between the city and the developer for 20 years with extensions, and it's for the property phase 2 of the Bogue Stewart Master Plan, which is the west side of 99 between Bogue and Stewart Road. Picture of the proposal. It went before the Planning Commission in November 2013, where the Planning Commission contingently approved the large parcel map 1502 and the small parcel map 1503 and recommended approval of the development agreement. On December 17th, the City Council was introduced for approval the ordinance for development agreement 1902. And so with that, I recommend adopting an ordinance for the approval of development agreement 1902 with Baines Property LP, property owner and developer, for the development of the Kells East Ranch subdivision, TSM 1502 and TSM 1503, and waive the second reading.
Thank you very much. Any member of the public care to comment? Okay. Need a motion?
Through the mayor.
Yep.
I move that we adopt an ordinance approving the development agreement 19-02 with Baines Property LP, property owner and developer, for the development of the Kells East Ranch subdivision, TSM 1502 and 1503, and waive the second reading.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much, Ben. Number 14, a use permit ordinance amendment presented by City Attorney Shannon Cheffin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been asked to present on this item for the department. This will be a presentation as to the legal effect of the ordinance. As you know, with city attorneys typically don't give presentations and we don't make recommendations as to policy issues. However, the staff recommendation in this matter is to approve or at least initiate the process to start approval of this draft ordinance before you this evening. Initiation will start the formal ordinance process. Given that this amends the zoning ordinance, it will need to go to the Planning Commission for a recommendation before it'll come back to you for final and formal approval. The proposed ordinance that you have before you requires a process, or allows a process, by which the City Council can choose to reach down and pick up a use permit application as it comes in the door and consider it directly, therefore bypassing the Planning Commission. It's an expedited process review. Basically, under the process, a use permit is submitted. The planning director then provides a list of all the use permits that are submitted to the City Council, individual City Council members to take a look at. If any member of the City Council is interested at potentially considering the item directly, they can put the item on the next City Council agenda. Then the appropriate notices go out so everybody's aware of them, including the community and neighbors. And then the City Council can make the decision as to whether or not to use this alternative use process. In other words, bypassing the Planning Commission and directly hearing the matter. Assuming that there are sufficient enough votes at that particular time, then staff will go back and then process the matter, do the appropriate CEQA, make sure the applications are done, do the tests, do any impact surveys or traffic impact studies, whatever else needs to be done, draft up a staff report, provide the notices, then come back to the City Council for the initial consideration of the item. The decision of the City Council will then be final. There's no other reviewing body, it goes directly to the City Council. There are some considerations with regards to speed, the way that this is set up. City is under the Permit Streamlining Act, which is reason why the council process is implemented at the beginning of the process rather than towards the end of the process. The draft ordinance proposed for initiation also contains a sunset provision after 1 year and after it becomes effective unless the council chooses to renew it. The ordinance also confirms the council's authority to waive appeal fees, and so that's clarified as well. The ordinance does not provide for an alternative review process for non-use permit items, like general plan amendments or zone amendments or any of those sorts of things, but it does provide that if there is a condition of approval for any permit, that the direct review process can be reviewed. So if you've placed, or the city has placed, a condition of approval on a project that requires use by the City Council, this ordinance confirms that process. Staff's recommendation is to initiate the ordinance, and either staff or myself is available for questions. Thank you.
All right, any member of the public care to comment on the item? All right, we can bring it back to council for discussion and or a motion.
Through the mayor. So Shannon, how much time savings is this going to do with us not going to the Planning Commission? How much, it's still going to be the same amount of time, it's just we're just taking the lead instead of the Planning Commission?
It depends. What it does is potentially allows a leapfrogging effect by which you don't have to go to the Planning Commission. So if there's a conditional use permit, and I'm just using rough rule of thumb, This could save anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on whether or not there's the 10-day appeal process, the amount of noticing time and advance lead that you would need for the planning commission decision itself, whether or not the item is actually continued. It could vary. So it could be from 4 weeks, it could save you 6 weeks, it could even save you a couple months, depending on the nature of the circumstances.
And to the mayor, and how am I pronounce this? Or will the city and council, if we're doing this, leapfrogging this, will we be liable for, instead of going to the planning commission and doing it the proper way, or will we be liable for lawsuits or anything like that quicker than if it went through the planning commission?
So you're asking if there's a legal risk involved as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Council Member. City attorneys never like to be asked if there's a legal risk over the dais. And so, but I will say this, there are due process items put in this proposed ordinance the way it sounds. Every applicant and the member of the public will have the opportunity to do that and go through that due process. So there is due process. Is there a risk for anything? Yes, life's full of risks. But in this particular case, the risk is manageable given the ordinance that's proposed.
Thank you.
No, go ahead.
Through the mayor. I was the one that kind of pushed this to be brought before the council here a while back because we have been asking for this for approximately a year. And want to make sure that we're crystal clear on what the intent of the ordinance was to be and how it would be used and the process. And to answer the last question, we're just as liable whether we have a streamlined method, Councilmember Cardozo, or if we have, going through the planning commission. The liability and the risk is the same. With that, we watched this community a couple of years ago through, I'll call it what it was, holy hell, because of a use permit. And it got real contentious, and as it was going through the planning commission and then brought up before this council, there was some that was like, rush it through, do this, do that before the change of the guard occurred. And the use permit got approved with 60 conditions on the backside. And one of those conditions on the backside of that was that use permit could have no changes done to it without it coming before the council. At that point, we initiated the process that we needed to change the ordinances because we now have a use permit with a condition that the ordinance doesn't allow for. So we needed that, and that actually, for lack of better terms, basically got rat-holed by employees at the time that were supposed to be doing that. We're just going to call it what it was, and it sat there. So we need this to handle that part of it at a minimum. The second part was I personally never want to see this community go through that type of torture again, to where you watched people that were friends suddenly become enemies, and it got pretty heated at times. We're one community, and we need to expedite things. The whole intent with this was if the council began to see something that was at the planning commission to where it was getting very contentious and they were already hearing it, that not one person could act alone, but we as a collective body could say, you know what, let's save the public the trouble. Let's go ahead and bring this up and not have to have someone appeal and then wait the 10 days and do all the notifications and cost us 6 more weeks. But go ahead and bring it to basically end game, which is here, because if they go through weeks or months at the planning commission, anyone, any one of us could even appeal it ourselves as an individual to come up to the council. All we have to do is file the appeal and pay the appropriate fee. This would be a prudent thing from the council to alleviate that and say, you know what, this topic is just, we already see it's going to end up here. So if 3 out of the 5 minimum, just like with anything else, says that this is in the best interest of the city, we can go, you know what, bring it on up. And the person seeking the use permit and the ones that are against it, everyone will have their same due process as they would at the planning commission. All the public comments, all the presentations, all the deliberations, except there wouldn't be, we do it once, someone appeals it, and we do the whole thing over again. we would just go ahead and bring it up and take care of it and take ownership of it like we did when we had to deal with that use permit about a year ago. That was the intent of this, and I know there's some wording and such in there that needed to be wordsmithed and figured out, but it wasn't so any one person could go rogue. It wasn't to take away any part of the Planning Commission's job, and the Planning Commission serves as an extension of us. They are not their own governing body. They're an extension of this council. But it is to save this community the heartache that we got put through a couple of years ago. And that helps the developers if they've got a project and they need a use permit, move it right on through. You know, we should be fair and objective, and that's what our job is. We're going to listen to everyone. We're going to do what's best for the community. But why put the community through the torture? So that's the two reasons I asked for this. Number one, we have to have the change so that it aligns with a conditional use permit that we've already got outstanding, that this was supposed to have occurred last April, and it kept getting pushed off. The second one is to look forward to hopefully we can save this community from heartache in the future. So with that, I think we do need to move forward with this with staff's recommendation. We need to work on some wordsmithing, make sure we got it all dialed in so that no one has the authority or the power to go rogue. We're not bypassing the Planning Commission, but it's basically a safety valve for this community and this leadership at the dais. So,
through the mayor, I would add that I agree with Councilwoman Shaw's comments, but I would also add that what I support especially about this is the fact that this has the potential to streamline projects through the system. One of our council priorities, city priorities, is being open for business. I don't see this being used very frequently, but there are those projects that you just know are going to come to us either through an applicant appeal or something that we initiate or somebody else initiates. And that's I think that's where the usefulness of this ordinance comes in. It still takes 3 votes of the folks sitting here alongside of me to make it happen. If it happens, I think it's potentially good for business. I think it can expedite things. And I also am aware and concerned about any legal liability that might be out there. But I also know that on any project at any time, we can find ourselves in that strange area known as a lawsuit. So I think this is in the best interest of the city, and I support this item as we move forward with it.
Through the mayor, I was surprised by the agenda item on the use permit because I wasn't, sometimes with our restrictions and our conversations, rules that we can only speak with amongst so many of us. Because the process, as I was reading the ordinance and reading the report, there were some very specific, it seemed to me, some trigger points on when the particular special use permit or conditional use permit could be triggered to be requested. And one of the things, and maybe I missed it, and if it needs to be pointed out to me, Shannon, let me know. But the way that I read it, it was that only one council member could pull or bring forward an item, or did I misread that? And that made me question if that is a reasonable language in the potential ordinance, or which the ordinance is the procedure. So can you clarify on that? Because I didn't find what my fellow council vice mayor here is saying.
Yes, thank you, council member. It would allow any one council member to put the item on the agenda for consideration by all council members.
Okay, so I could, in theory, not that we're gonna go after Dollar Store, but just as an example, that had some conditional permit issues, correct? And so I could say, I really don't like what's going on with that, and I could request to put it, so it stalls the process with that particular permit, would it not? I'm asking the question for the attorney.
It would not stall the process. what it would do is it would bypass planning commission review of the process and allow the council to immediately consider it.
But the person who is requesting that special permit or that conditional permit, they would have to wait until the next meeting that I could request this, discussion item to put it, to hopefully get 3 other. It's this, instead of going through the planning commit, and if the planning had a meeting, the following week, it could be 2-3 weeks later.
I see your question now. Councilwoman,
I'm just
let me know.
Giving examples, yeah.
So what this is designed to do is immediately at the beginning of the process, before this matter is even scheduled for planning commission, basically to allow, there's usually a path forward through the planning commission.
Right.
But instead, right at the very beginning, the city council can take it directly to the city council if they choose. If the city council doesn't, they have certainty via the typical process and they will go forward. So in other words, given the timelines, within 7 days of the circulation, the initial application comes in, as a practical matter, it will not result in any delay.
So within those 7 days, are those 7 business days or calendar days?
It's
not clear.
Calendar days. So as part of the calendar, what typically happens, and Ben can probably tell you a little bit more about this, is you get an application in the door, and then once it's deemed complete, especially with a use permit, you have to circulate it for review, you have to do all these backgrounds, you have to do CEQA, you have to go through this process. That process takes time. While he's starting that process, he's also sending basically an email out or a list to the city council saying, hey, I got this use permit that came in. Is anybody interested?
So in that moment, I could be the one to request
placing it on
the next agenda.
Yes.
And at that moment, let's say it comes to the agenda and 3 other council members disagree with me and say, no, that business, or 2, majority, right? Disagree with me at that moment. So then that use permit or special permit or conditional permit is done.
It still continues down the trail to the planning commission.
It doesn't come back to the council, because that's what was confusing.
Now, think about this as a diversion on a train track. So there's a period of a track before you get to the planning commission train station. And at the very beginning of the track, there's a processing length of time. Midway through that processing length of time, you can divert to the city council if you want to, and it won't delay the process at all. You're going to get to the planning commission just as fast as you're going to get to the city council.
Okay.
So if you go forward and you say, hey, one person puts it on the agenda for the meeting and the council says, no, we don't want to divert the track, that process is not going to be changed for speed.
So it continues going to the planning commission.
Right to the planning commission.
Okay. Because in the matrix that is on section 85.001, there was specific triggers on when the council could, and did I read that correctly or am I wrong on that part? Where it's specific to the city council, multifamilies that they have to, over 100. So those are triggers that where that special permit or use permit process creates where when a person can come and speak to us, or we can pull that ourselves?
These triggers are triggers, but they're for various types of permit.
Okay.
So these triggers don't necessarily apply to use permits. There's portions of them that may. So there's a development plan review, for example, multifamily, number of units, where the review goes, how the planning commission may make a recommendation to the council before certain actions for larger projects. That's built in. The amendment basically adds an additional alternative process if the council chooses to act on it. If it doesn't choose to act on it, the regular process applies.
So we still have that particular process ourselves. Okay. Then I had my last question and you were so eloquent. You know how that just kind of goes the wrong, geez, I have to wait and see if it comes back to me. I was just right there with it. I think it was more around the issue of what if, I just recalled my question. So in this change of, tracks, it's more like, I feel like a pit stop and then you go to the other, if not necessarily, but What other cities are doing this?
It depends on the city. Most cities provide to go to the planning commission first, and then there would be an appeal process to the city council.
Okay.
I have seen some other cities where they don't have a planning commission, where the city council basically acts as a planning commission. So the city council sitting as a planning commission would review it first anyway. I have seen some other cities where they do allow for an expedited process, but it's in the minority. Most of the cities don't provide for a streamlined or a bypassing process. In fact, the vast majority don't. There may be certain reasons for that, but each community sets its own standards as to what use works for that community.
So as a city, what could we be exposed to? And this is a logistic, that term, legal.
What are the legal exposure?
I know, I hate asking you legal questions because you're going to give me just kind of a fluffy answer.
The level of risk that you have with this ordinance doesn't really change from what you have before. There is due process. There's just more due process with the with the normal mechanism. The alternative way provides for a faster approach, but there's one less level of review. So it's roughly the same.
Yeah, I would like to, if we're heading this path and if the votes are there, I would love to have more conversation about this. Because if I can't get it clear in my brain and I've just looked at it, the same amount of time that the public was able to look at this, and you're supposed to clearly understand it and hope that businesses will find this to be a benefit and community members find it as a benefit. And looking at our goals, to be a business-friendly community is to improve, objective 4, we want to improve the process and the development in a fair, consistent manner of our policies. So I'm just hoping that we align ourselves to that particular objective within our priority as well. And I just wanted to have a clear sense how this is going to be better for us.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Just to be clear, tonight you will actually get a second bite of the apple on this. Tonight's the initiation process. Tonight's the, hey, do we want to start this, and are there any clarifications we think we should add to this before we send it to the Planning Commission process? So you will have a second bite at the apple. You'll also have the benefit of the Planning Commission's recommendation the next time that you see this, assuming that the City Council wants to initiate it.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Through the mayor, Mr. Chaffin, I just want to clarify for everyone involved that while we have the two different paths, if the council chooses not to take the expedited route, or it never gets to that point and they go through the planning commission, they still have all the normal hearing rights, appeal rights, everything stays in place. This is just kind of an express lane, is really what it is.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Or it could be the fast track if you're trying to get in through the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, thank you.
And I do like your analogy. It's better than the train tracks. It's more of an express lane, I guess, would be a
Through the mayor, I still think that Councilwoman Espindola's question is, if the council chooses on a 3 or more votes to hear the item, to expedite it, can they do that at the same council meeting that they vote to bring it to the council, or does it have to wait for the next council meeting? Because that's a question of timing, right?
Yes. So if you are putting it on the agenda, you're actually not approving the CUP or considering approval of the CUP. You're merely determining whether to use the alternative route.
Right. And then you can bring it back at the next meeting and then consider the item, right?
I don't know if it'd be the next meeting because you still need to do the seek with the processing.
Whenever it's ready. Yeah, whenever it's ready to come back to the council. Right. Okay.
And through the mayor again, on when we have those based upon the limited times that we've seen that this was necessary, with the amount of people that wanted to speak at it and such, and the way this council has operated, I honestly think there'd probably be a special meeting called specifically for that addresses that as it would have been before the planning commission. So it's done very thorough. The applicant has all of their rights. The appellate has all of their rights. And I think the council would probably go above and beyond and not try to throw it in amongst 28 items on the agenda.
And Council Member Shaw, if I may, one of the things that's built into this draft ordinance is that there are it's an unusual process. It's only for limited circumstances. And it does say that they have to check for factors. So the council would check for factors for proceeding with the alternative review process can include the likelihood of appeal to the city council if another review process is used. In other words, if you go the traditional route. The public interest in expediting the review process, and other items related to public health, safety, and welfare. So this is not a one-size-fit bandage approach the way that it's designed. It's designed for more narrow circumstances.
All right, well, thank you very much for all that discussion. It seems to be a, potentially, we could be longer or shorter time-wise, depends on the timing. And I think the impetus for the suggestion, which is to provide us options under those limited circumstances, is a good one. And I liked a couple things in the draft ordinance. I like that we have to have a majority opinion or a majority of the council approve the fact that we do the bypass. I also like the fact that we have a sunset clause worked into that to give us an automatic way to revert back to the current process if, for whatever reason, some unforeseen problems surfaced when we implement this during the initial trial period. I personally like that idea. I think the reason why we got here was an exception, and I'm not typically in favor of arguing the exception as if it's the general rule, because everything in the process has to pay the price of an exception. I think we have professionalism to deal with that, but I think giving us options like this is and as long as they're legal, apparently they are, which is great, and to streamline processes and get business done is a good thing, and so I would support that. Having said that, I would entertain a motion unless I'll give one more chance for the public to comment on anything. Okay. Or further comment, if necessary.
All right, through the mayor.
Or do we need a motion on this?
We need it or just direction?
As you're initiating it, I would say have a first and second, make a vote, and
all right.
We can
all right, thank you.
On the trail.
Okay. Through the mayor, I would move that we initiate an ordinance update that will amend the Yuba City Municipal Code to allow for direct city council review of use permits by amending sections 8-5.7001 and 8-5.7003 of Article 70 of Chapter 5 of Title 8 and Section 8-5.7101 of Article 71 of Chapter 5 of Title 8.
Second.
Can you do, Mayor, through Mayor, can you do a roll call, please?
A what? A roll call vote? Sure, no problem. Madam Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Shaw?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Boomgarden?
Aye.
Mayor Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Cardoza?
Yes.
And Councilmember Espandola?
No.
All right, thank you very much. That will pass. We'll go on to number 15, proposed general plan amendment to transportation element policy affecting a portion of Bridge Street and adoption of a supplemental environmental impact report. Welcome back, Ben.
Okay, so.
Through the mayor, excuse me, Ben.
Yes.
Through the mayor, I'd like to let the public know that I attended that planning commission meeting for the presentation of this that we're talking about tonight. For the traffic policy. I want to let the public know that I attended the planning commission meeting.
Congratulations.
I'm supposed to let the public know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so bear with me on this one. There's some subject matter that I'm still wrapping my head around on to explain clearly, and so I appreciate in advance the patience to get through this. And so as Councilmember Cardoza referenced, this came to the Planning Commission at their January 8th meeting to discuss. And what this item is before you is to proactively account for the city's traffic level of service on Bridge Street to avoid costly improvements to the community and the development community in the future. And so what we're looking at specifically is a general plan amendment, which is a proposal amending the general plan policy number 5.2I12 of the Yuba City General Plan transportation element to add the segment of Bridge Street between North Pelora and 2nd Street to the list of streets where exceptions to the minimum level of service D are allowed, and putting that as an exception to allow level of service F. Additionally, the policy amendment would allow level of service F on this site. So that's specifically the item that we're looking at tonight is regarding the general plan amendment and the supplemental EIR to analyze that, to implement it. And so to give a little background on level of service definitions, in 2004, the current general plan was adopted, establishing a level of service policy for traffic, setting the minimum level of service as D for city roadways, except for state highways and bridges that would cross the Feather River. And so currently, that area in green, there's exemptions in the general plan policy that basically say we want to keep all roads. Development needs to consider that whatever that development is, it's not going to bring our roadways to a level of service less than D, except for the bridges that cross the Feather River and the state highways, and it does not consider residential roadways. So what is level of service? Level of service D, from our traffic engineer, Ken Anderson, he had a rule of thumb where basically D was where you anticipate you're going to stop for a traffic signal. In level of service F, basically it's where you anticipate stopping twice for a traffic signal. It's really, there's a firm definition in the highway capacity manual that talks about going from 35 to 55 seconds at that intersection delay to greater than 80 seconds for F. But what that rule of thumb is really, it's, hey, when you're driving down this road, the likelihood is that you're going to get stopped twice at one intersection. And so the specific area that we're asking for this exemption, it's specifically for Bridge Street, which is, as the council knows, one of our arterials that is connected to the Feather River Bridge and one of the main connections besides Highway 20 going over into east of Marysville and connecting to Highway 70. And so really the reason that we're going forward with this is that due to our traffic model, as the city expands and with only 2 bridges, the city of Yuba City, when it expands, that level of service is going to go to F, regardless if we have this policy implemented or not. But if you don't have this policy modified, that means any project that comes in would have a significant impact that would then have to have basically an EIR or a higher level of CEQA environmental analysis provided that would basically have to have overriding conditions that specifically allow that project to move forward for the benefit of the city. And so definitely the city attorney could add on to that CEQA analysis, or Diana Langley with the Public Works Department are very familiar with our roadways and traffic impacts. And so at the heart of it is that we only have 2 bridges that go over. And so sooner or later, Bridge Street's going to be a level of service F as we grow out. Right now, to today, will it be level service F? No. And with the future improvements, with the bridge going to 4 lanes and with the planned improvements from Gray Avenue to Clark going to 4 lanes, that will improve the area and keep that at a level of service B or C for quite a while, is what our traffic engineer is telling us. But when the city grows out to that, maximizes that sphere of influence, the 20-year, 50-year horizon, 100-year horizon, whatever it takes, we will reach that level of service without having a 3rd bridge or doing some sort of extensive widening, multi-lanes for both Yuba City and Marysville. And so what we're trying to do is modify that policy so it doesn't basically put that harsh requirement on development going forward. And so with this general plan amendment, in order to amend it, we need to adopt the supplemental EIR, and staff proposes council approve the public benefit findings that adjust the level of service policy 5.2 I-12 with the findings of clear public benefit that were consistent with the general plan goals that that what we're doing increases economic development potential, creation of jobs for Yuba City residents, opportunities for this segment of Bridge Street for commercial office and related uses, implementation of city vision for development of the greater downtown established by the Central City Core Pacific Plan, and further recognizes any anticipated traffic conditions, level service F along Bridge Street through the downtown area. So the Planning Commission at that January 8th meeting recommended for approval the environmental assessment and the GPA. And with that, I'm recommending items A and B of the staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Ben. Any public comment on the item? All right. Back to council. You want to make a motion?
Okay, I'll move to adopt A and B recommendations by the staff member, Ben Moody, instead of reading it through.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
And we have George down here for this one. Street banner policy. Are we pulling that one?
Yes, please.
Okay, and number 17, letter of support for North State Public Safety Training Center.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you know, Senator Nielsen and staff from this city and other cities have been working for some time to bring to Yuba City a North State Public Safety Training Center, which should include both police and fire training, a full-blown training center for both to meet all the requirements of post and all the requirements of the fire service. The senator is requesting letters of support for the conceptual project, which would be located in Yuba City at Station 4 on a piece of property the city owns behind Station 4 and would adequately house the facility. The state budget process is such that it will either be in the May revised budget or it will not, and we're obviously hoping it will. We will know for sure in May. If the project is funded through the state, then the immediate action that would need to be taken is to form a JPA, a Joint Powers Authority, which would immediately ask for commitments from any and all users of the facility, financial commitments, and we would shape that into a JPA and create the governing structure of the JPA, and would not start construction until such commitments were in place. And then we would also estimate what it would cost to operate the facility. There are several facilities in California and many facilities throughout the United States that are operating in the black. So we are obviously hopeful that we would also operate in the black. And we would get those commitments, get the JPA formed, and once all that is completed, then construction could commence at the facility. So at this point, it's just a conceptual support of the project from Yuba City. And since it's in our city, they're anxiously awaiting this letter of support, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, any public comment on the matter? All right.
Through the mayor
Yes,
and to the city manager, and it's encouraging to hear that the concepts of at least developing the JPA are being considered this time around. I'm still concerned. What would happen if the JPA, if the formation of the JPA became in jeopardy?
Well, then the decision would have to be made whether to move forward or not.
Okay, so in theory, I guess it's one of those cart before the horse or horse before the cart. Has there been any movement on developing the business plan to find out how much this is going to cost, and any kind of inclination from those that might be a member of the JPA about their willingness to support this as a JPA on a mid or long-term basis?
That's underway. We don't have specific financial commitments. We have commitments that they would spend their training dollars at this new facility rather than somewhere else. We can get more exact figures, and we can bring that to you as soon as that is completed.
I've previously indicated my support and will continue to support this. My significant concern continues to be the operability of this on the long term and the burden it could potentially place on the city of Yuba City. Have history operating a fire academy at Butte College, know the expense. This has been several years, but it's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm, again, supportive of the project, but concerned, and rightfully so, about the financial impact it could have on us. I don't think it's fair to say, hey, look, we're going to avoid training costs, and that's going to subsidize the operational and maintenance costs of the facility. I've heard that mentioned in public meetings. That's not going to cover it, in my opinion. Lastly, the last paragraph of the letter, I would suggest perhaps we change the language. It says, my business is in full support of the proposed North State Public Safety Training Center. I believe that should say our city.
No, I did catch that. I thought we changed it before we put together the packet. I did see that. We'll change that. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Through the mayor. I'm in consensus with you, Vice Mayor. I support the entire concept. I think it's a great opportunity to have a training center in Yuba City. I am concerned about the operational cost of it. I have brought this up to you in our conversations, and it would be helpful to know the potential size of this facility if it were to be built, given us the opportunity to have some sort of projected operational cost. So if it's 15,000 square feet or whatever, what is the size of the type of facility that we're considering in our area? Are there other facilities alike to that and it would cost similar to? What does it cost that? What does it cost other cities to do this?
Well, there are several facilities in California that are operating in the black right now. They have very different operating costs because they have very different sort of services they provide, and they have a different number of participating agencies. So we're trying to flush that out, but we will get something back to the council to consider in terms of what that might look like.
Thank you.
It's a follow-up question. Who's taking the burden of developing this operational plan? Is this a multi-jurisdictional thing, or is this falling in the lap of us?
Well,
Yuba City, as far as the operational and maintenance projections.
At the moment, it's mostly on the City of Yuba City staff. We also have a consultant who has worked pro bono this entire time, has never charged us. He's an expert in these facilities throughout the United States. I do think it's time that we need to pay him and really bring him on to do the heavy lifting. He's an expert in what these costs are. And it's probably time to, get that work product from him. He can tell us, he can show us everything that's out there. And then we can decide based on the plan, which sits at $15 million right now. So we know what we would provide in that phasing of the project. So we can now figure out, okay, if we build these particular things for $15 million, we can, from that, figure out the operating costs. I think we can do a pretty good job of that.
Okay, I think I heard you say we, meaning
it's mostly the city at this point.
I would hope before we spend any money on a consultant to design an operational plan or whatever else, that comes to ours for approval.
Of course, it will come back to the council. Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
I remember the presentation last year. It was a wonderful presentation. They got everything there. If it could probably be given again, because it's all on a computer, we could watch it again. Vice Mayor Boomgarden made a mention. When we bought the property on Olier and Franklin, we borrowed $1 million out of our enterprise fund. By any chance, when we do all this, can that enterprise fund be reimbursed before we move on with this. That way we're not in any more inconvenience than what we have. You know, we borrowed it, we need to pay it back so we can help our infrastructure and stuff in our community. Can that be done? Part of the plan?
Well,
You can say yes, no.
I wasn't here when all that happened, so
Right.
I'd really have to talk to staff to figure out what decisions were made and why, and then figure out, you know, it'd be a pretty heavy lift to pay it back, and it would have to be over a period of time.
I think that we need to, you know, it was a loan, and if we're getting this money and we're end up going to be doing all this anyway, I think we need to reimburse our enterprise fund. That way it can help us and help the citizens. We don't have to raise the water rates in the future and, you know, make our community better and our infrastructure. It's just a comment, just see what happens here in the future. Future comments is all it is. I'd like to kind of put that out there though, please.
Through the mayor, I agree. Yeah, Councilman Cardoza raises an excellent point that, quite frankly, I'd forgotten about during this current discussion. Is yes, that the 10 acres that was purchased, and Ms. Langley probably has more information about the financing piece that it continues to exist. But yes, Councilman Cardoza is correct. There was money borrowed from other funds to purchase that project. It was initially going to be potentially either water storage tanks, if I remember correctly, or even an outside corp yard.
Secondary corporation yard, yes, that was brought up.
Appreciate you bringing that back up.
Thank you.
Through the mayor. When this project originally came before us last year, all my fellow colleagues are right on point. We really had the cart before the horse last year, asking for a lot of things without an ounce of knowledge of what was going on or the funding mechanisms. So the first ask that I have is, as we go through this council, and I understand how it's going to go through the senator's office and the budgetary process, and it's a lot of hurry up and wait, and then you're scrambling and you're waiting. I get that. But we need to be very well informed with what the operational costs are going to be, what the tentative funding is, dealing with loans that we have for the land that was purchased. And the only other question that I have, and Chief Landon, you might be able to answer this because our new fire chief's only been with us, actually sworn in about 3 hours ago, but this is the same training facility that Mr. Fuller presented to us, to myself, went through everything in his. It would be fire and police and a training facility that was going to be kind of done in phases. They originally asked for like 24. It got scaled back to about 15. But nothing's changed conceptually that you know of on the facility. Would that be correct, Chief? Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Through the mayor,
Yes.
if I could make one clarification on the record. Our rates for enterprise funds are set by the cost of providing services, and loans should not be affected, will affect utility rates or other sorts of rates.
Well, then I'm just saying, helping our infrastructure, then I'll just go with infrastructure then.
Excellent. I just wanted to make that
Okay.
for the record. So
Thank you,
there
sir.
wouldn't be a misunderstanding out there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So we're just basically looking for a conceptual authorization, a letter of support for the development. So that's where we are today. I too reiterate the fact that we do need to have a solid finance plan, or at least a conceptualized finance plan, given the fact if we have the 15 million, this is what we're going to build. This is the anticipated cost of doing it. This is the services we can provide, what we can charge. And then, I wouldn't expect any other municipality to have any binding agreement in place so early in the process, but at least a feel for the appetite for participation so we can fund this thing. It's going to be a great thing. Of course, I fully support it, but we do have the responsibility of making sure we're not going to go off a cliff financially trying to keep it up. So, that being said,
Through the mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like to make a motion, a letter of support for the North State Public Safety Training Center. Authorize the mayor to sign a letter of the support for the development of a regional public safety training center in Yuba City to benefit the North State first responders.
Second.
All those in favor of the letter of support?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to number 19, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. We do have a couple of items. First of all, want to again welcome 3 new department heads to the executive management team. Development Services Director Ben Moody, Finance Director Spencer Morrison, there he is, and our new Fire Chief Jesse Alexander, who was sworn in earlier. So congratulations to all of them. There is a upcoming special meeting, Safe Routes to School workshop on Bridge Street School tomorrow, Wednesday, January 22nd, 5 to 7 p.m. Andrus Carperus School, Thursday, January 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. These workshops are being set up open house style with a brief presentation by staff at 6 p.m. The City Council will be holding a special meeting on Monday, January 27th at Boyd Hall on Lassen Boulevard. This meeting is being called a community conversation to speak directly to the City Council about the public's priorities and also for the public to hear what the council adopted earlier this year as their strategic goals. There's also a special council meeting on January 28th, Tuesday night, and that will be facilitated by the city attorney, and it will be for all Brown Act committees, and we will be training and updating all of those Brown Act committees on Rosenberg's Rules of Order, the Brown Act, and how to conduct a public meeting, and the role of the chair and what those particular duties require. Other events, the Sutter County Candidates Forum is being held tomorrow night, January 22nd at Boyd Hall. And there is also on February 22nd at the Yuba City Fairgrounds, the Marysville Exchange Club is hosting the annual Police Officer of the Year Awards Dinner, and tickets are $35. Thank you.
Red button. Thank you very much. We'll go on with City Council reports. Councilmember Cardoza.
All righty. We didn't have a meeting the 1st of January, so we got a little bit of December in here. I helped serve dinner for the 8th annual Christmas luncheon for the homeless and the needy. It's my 4th year doing it. It's her 5th year doing this community event. It's all volunteer. It was all donations from the community. At that time, we served between 350 to 450 people. It was a rainy day and they had to walk from the river bottoms, but they did come and had a good meal and was able to get some clothing and supplies. I attended the holiday soiree at the Sutter County Museum. That was a city-county event, and Terrell won the best sweater award there with us, huh? Got the sweater? The worst sweater, yes. We had a fun time that day. Attended the grand opening of Kelly Moore Paints. We have, they were in the community years ago. They're back in our community. They're on Bridge Street. We had dinner Friday night with our Supreme Governor of the Moose Lodge, with the our new fire chief, Mike, and the mayor and myself, and Commander, let's see, it's Brian Baker. Thank you. This weekend, council members attended the 21st annual Martin Luther King Jr. Community Walk, and it was organized by the Emmanuel Family Workshop Center and hosted by Bethel AME Church in Marysville. For city events, I attended the sobriety checkpoint with the Yuba City Police Department. It wasn't too bad of a night. It wasn't fairly warm. We had some retirement parties for Officer Ernest at our Yuba City Police Department, also Robert Britannica. And then we had our welcome and congratulations party tonight. Welcome Jesse, and congratulations also Ben and Spencer. Chamber events was very slim the last 2 months. We had our Ambassadors Christmas Social, and then we attended the Ambassadors Wine Down Wednesdays, which is a monthly event now for the next year. And we started off at Sutter Beach Brewery for meetings. I attended the Regional Housing Authority meeting, the Sutter Community Affordable Housing, the Yuba City Transit Authority, and then, as I mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission. And then last but not least, we did the Mayor's Polar Bear Plunge. The mayor was there, counted us to jump in the icy cold pool. We had a great time. It was a wonderful turnout. And hopefully we'll do that again next year. Anyway, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Espandola.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually took a break and joined my family and friends and really took a break from my fellow council members, even though I love you all. We all need a little bit of distance in a good way, gentlemen. But I did attend Officer Ernst's retirement party, and that was a beautiful send-off for a well-deserved officer with many years of service in our city. And his legacy speaks the greatest of him with his two boys working for us and the continuing of that service. And I'm proud that they're still part of our community and our family. So I just want to welcome everyone to the 2020 and hold on, and hopefully we will not, as council members, speak more than our allotted time. And I don't know, maybe we should start having like a timer and see who can get the less minutes of talking. It's just a manner of a good gesture up here, gentlemen. So thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020. Like everyone else, I took time off over the holidays, spent it with my family, which means I was about 3,000 miles away from here. So when I unplugged, I unplugged. And as many of my colleagues know, I spent some time in Club Med. But I'm all back and 100% again, so I'm good. Since I've been back, we've started new committee assignments, and notable things, Regional Transit Authority, serve on that. One of the things that they were embarking on and they're going to be looking at, and I've discussed this with the city manager already, is a new location potential that will be coming up in the near future. Because with the expansion of Highway 70, they're going to need another facility. Likewise, with the conversion that comes by 2030, with buses having to be zero emission, that means going to electric buses. They need a lot of power. So we've authorized a study to commence and start to try to find a location for the future. So to the city of Yuba City, if we have land and a place that will facilitate that, please reach out to Keith Martin at Yuba Center Transit. Likewise, if someone in Yuba City has land that they're interested in selling that might meet that need, reach out to Keith Martin at Yuba Center Transit, 1-800, no, I'm kidding. The other committee that I've sat on is the RWMA, and I am the vice chair of the Regional Waste Management Authority now. We will have to have the RWMA on our radar coming up over the next couple of years because of a bill 1383 that passed that had to do with solid waste disposal and fines and how you do things from recycling in the cafeterias and the restaurants and green waste. More information to come, but the consensus is as this begins to move through, the RWMA is going to be reaching out and working with all the 5 jurisdictions that belong. And this is coming down from the state, but just have that on your radar. The last thing that has occurred just in the last, all these occurred in the last week, is with the vice mayor, we have started the impact fee ad hoc committee. We've had our very first meeting. We're working on having our second one to pull together with the goal of finding what is the low-hanging fruit, as I call it, things that we can do immediate that we can bring back before this council so this council can consider things that might help us be more business-friendly and attract growth. Looking at things that are going to be on the mid-range plateau that may be coming back before the council late summer, early fall, and then having even the long-term projects or the long-term changes that would be coming because, as you know, we're having to redo our traffic models and studies and everything. So there's a lot working, but I speak as one, and correct me, Vice Mayor, if I misspeak, but I think the goal is let's see what we can do to get business-friendly and spur growth as quickly. This is going to be in stages, but Yuba City is open for business, and I look forward to working with the vice mayor, the members of the community that are going to be on this, and bringing things before this council so that we can be pro-growth, pro-business, and meet the needs of our residents here. Did attend the walk. That was amazing. I will say to Bethel AME Church and Emmanuel Worship, fabulous job. Thank you for reaching out to us, and thank you for letting us be a part. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
And Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow up on the impact fees, just to kind of give a little bit of an update as well. Fantastic meeting with staff. Thank you to Diana and Ben and the city manager for helping us get that moving. We are in the process through Councilman Shaw of identifying the community members that will be in that committee. From listening to them and others that are in the builders and developers community, there's a positive vibe right now. We want to take advantage of that. We want to see if maybe we can keep things going and getting some things done. Of course, that requires all of us to stuff that we bring back, support and execute on that, but that's in the future. We have also had the first meeting for the master tax share agreement. Super important subcommittee. We're meeting with members of the Sutter County, our counterparts. We have another meeting scheduled at the end of the month. This is how, as the city develops and potentially gets into annexing county land, how do we divvy up the taxes equitably? So far, so good. A little slow start, not necessarily on the city's part, but we're moving ahead. Attended a LAFCO meeting as the city's representative on LAFCO. A rather interesting discussion on ag mitigation, again, as we talk about annexations and sphere of influence issues. There are concerns in regards to how do you develop, but also consider prime ag land. At that meeting, the LAFCO board chose to not do anything at this time, but it is up on the radar. Special welcome to Ben. And to Spencer and to Jesse. You guys are now department heads. Good luck. Been there, done that. No, I truly am encouraged. You guys all have a background that's impressive, and I know that you're going to bring great value to the city of Yuba City. And with that, I'll yield to the mayor.
All right, all good stuff. Primarily since our last meeting has been consumed by holiday things and things being closed and canceled and postponed for the holidays. There's not a lot going on city-wise, but it was a nice break, that's for sure. Down at SACOG, we welcomed and appointed Mayor Samayo out of Marysville as vice chair of SACOG, which is going to be good. I think we of course enjoy a good relationship with Marysville. There's a couple projects, not the least of which would be a bike path that I would like to work with him. We have a new funding round coming through on SACOG, and we kind of leverage those relationships. And I think there's a lot of support in the air for that. It's probably too early, not a good thing, but I think I've talked about it enough before. I would love to have our bike path that starts out there at High and Dry on Acacia, link all the way through somehow to Bridge and Plumas, where we can link rural areas, residential areas, and our business areas where people can actually maybe bike or walk to work. And then Mayor Samayo has expressed an interest in also utilizing the abandoned trestle over the river, incorporate into a bike path or a walking path. And eventually, if they have us a blank check, we'd like to link all the way out to Sycamore Ranch out there in East Yuba County, so you can get all the way through. And I think that would be really pretty cool. And have it be similar to what we have out there between Jefferson and Acacia, but for lack of a better word, nicer. Maybe more amenities and some landscaping and whatnot. And it's kind of a city quality of life thing that we're working on, but I think it'd be pretty awesome. So it's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on among many, many other things. SACOG is a great organization. They have what they call a regional trails project. I think we can kind of work with them on that. Also, they're working on Bridge Street corridor, the Civic Lab projects, trying to get that developed, which is a really good project. Come forward with some plans on that, and was happy to see that we're moving forward on getting one step closer to widening Bridge Street and punching that all the way through. Attended many, like we all do, community meetings. I won't go down that list. I did have one thing that was really nice was I met with Russ Zulio, who is the new owner of the Tea Garden House, and he's already done a lot, added a kitchen and a few other things, and has a lot of plans for that facility as an event center. And he gave me a tour of the improvements that he's already done, and it's very encouraging. Nice guy, and welcomed him to the area as a new business owner. And as part of Yuba Center Arts, many things going on over there. Anybody who reads a paper or anything, they can really see that Dave and Abby over there are really, really busy doing a lot of good things. One thing I was asked to be a part of, and of course I did so, it was my honor to do so, is help facilitate their venue to host a film on the Sikh way of life and their religion and their culture. That's going to be on January 30th at 6 p.m. over there at Lee Burroughs Center in Marysville. It's a 1-hour film. There'll be I told them to keep it at 2 minutes, so we'll be lucky if it's 5 presentations that we'll do. And then I'll do something for maybe 30 seconds. But the point is to answer questions, come together as a community, and so maybe some understanding on those folks, their way of life and their culture. That can only be a good thing. So that will be hosted on January 30th at Lee Burroughs Center in Marysville. Other than that, we're business as usual, staying very, very busy on a daily basis with everything going on and brewing in the city. It continues to be all of our honor to be involved with that. So thank you very much, and we'll go ahead and adjourn and resume closed session. Thank you very much.